I'm gonna take a little break.
You're good.
Keep going?
Yeah, keep going.
All right, so that's block periodization. West side conjugate method, which a lot of people here attempted to run. Attempted to run with a little misguided efforts. It's pretty simple. I mean, there's a giant book on it, and Louis is a genius. And I just figured that. Louis is a genius, and he's got lots of talking on it. But basically, you have 2 max effort days, 2 dynamic days. You have a max effort day for squat and pulls, a dynamic effort for squat pulls. You have a max effort for bench and a dynamic effort for bench. Okay? On your max effort days, you work up to a max triple, double, or single, or max repetitions, and you use supplementary exercises to build up your weak points in that specific lift. Okay? The lift mimics the squat or deadlift, but is not the squat or deadlift. So you use box squat, pin pull, good morning. For bench press, you use board press, floor press, dumbbell bench. Okay? 72 hours after your max effort work, you do your speed work, your dynamic effort. All right? So this would be on Monday, that would be on Wednesday, this would be on Friday, and this would be on Saturday. You don't do your speed work like the day after or even 48 hours after. You gotta be at least 72 hours after. Or 72 hours separating the 2 days. All right? Then you do your speed work, 10 to 12 sets of 2 on box squat with varying percentage waves. So I just gave 2, 50, 60, 65, or 50, 52, 55. It doesn't really matter. Just push it as fast as you can. That goes back to that Pelican's table where you pick your percentages and use how many reps per set in the optimal range. Again, you would use, then you go deadlift, 6 to 10 sets of 1, same percentage wave. You'd always vary accommodating resistance. So what they would do is on their speed days, they might do a 3-week wave with orange bands. Then they do 3-week wave with orange bands plus red bands. Then 3-week wave with gray bands. Then 3-week wave with gray bands plus orange bands, or something like that. Then they would switch. 3-week wave with 1 chain. 3-week wave with 2 chains. 3-week wave with 4 chains. 3 chains. Then switch. 3-week wave with chains plus orange. See what I'm saying? They just vary it like that. There's always the same percentage with varying accommodating resistance. Bench press is always 9 sets of 3. Your days of training recovery days are extra workouts. So if you had weak ass abs, you would come in and get an extra workout either later that same day or the next day and hit abs and going on there. All right, that's West Side conjugate method broken down, pretty simple. Conjugate block periodization, I put it in there. Basically what it is using the block method. Remember I was talking about detraining earlier? I was talking about how, if you don't use it, you lose it. You don't really want to go through a 8-week cycle or 8-week, time frame where you're not doing any type of max strength work. That's what will happen. You will lose your max strength. You don't want to go through a 8-week cycle where you're only doing max strength work and not doing any type of cardiovascular stuff, because your conditioning will go down the dumps. Conjugate block periodization is basically just taking the block periodization method, but throwing in the conjugate, meaning training different fitness characteristics within a microcycle or 2 microcycles, and just throwing in training sessions or little blocks, little microcycles within that bigger block, so you don't lose any of those training variables that you've been working on. All right, that's basically several different types of periodization that you can use. If you're bodybuilding, it's kind of a different story. There's only 3 things you have to do. 3 things that have to occur to induce hypertrophy or muscle growth. You got to stimulate the muscle. You got to provide it with adequate nutrients. You got to provide it with the adequate hormonal environment. So in other words, you got to stimulate it, and you got to use varying degrees of stimulation. So if you're trying to get bigger biceps, you have to vary the different types of curls, and different types of resistance you can use for curls, vary your different types of rep ranges. You have to provide with an adequate nutritional range, or surplus, means you got to eat your ass off with protein, carbs, and fats, and even at the right times. Finally, you got to provide the right hormonal environment, which means you better be sleeping taking your supplements to make sure you have, high enough testosterone levels and GH. And if you so choose, you can take steroids because that will create an even better hormonal environment. Pretty simple. You don't really have to periodize for bodybuilding, but strength gains, you do have to. So those different types of periodization, like I said, you can kind of combine them. You can use a block periodization approach with a conjugate method with max effort and some maximal work for speed. All right, and you can throw in some progressive overload for your auxiliary exercise, and you can throw in some bodybuilding movements, but it's just basically different type of stimulus to bring up. Like if you got a small ass, you can bring up a big ass, so you fits in your briefs better. All right. Or if you need your shirt to fit tighter and you need to cap your delts, you can use bodybuilding movements within a block periodization method, using the conjugate method to bring up your delts so that your shirt fits better. Right? It's not super rocket science. You just got to kind of understand the different methods and then kind of choose what works best for you. All right, that's all I got. You should have questions on that because I know no one can go home and right now write up a program for themselves. So use this opportunity to ask the questions. Or pay me $100 and I'll write you another program for you. What's up?
So for like programming for strongman, block periodization, the GPP you discussed would be things that correlate that aren't the same as, for instance, if you're training a dumbbell pec press method. It'd be something like training like a circus dumbbell type, like mimicking that.
Well, he asked kind of how we use block periodization for strongman. Well, how far out in advance do you know what the lifts are going to be?
It varies. Like, there's a competition coming up in Arkansas where we have the 5 events that we're training for, and I was trying to come up with things that would mimic some of the events that we'll be, competing in, like car deadlift. Of course, we don't want to car deadlift all the time to get better at it, but I'd like, to use this basically layouts.
What you would do is you say, like, what are the major things I need to be good at strongman? Strength and a bit of good conditioning. Right. And then I would say strength endurance.
Strength endurance, right.
So I'm gonna use the terms I like as accumulation, transmutation, and realization. So accumulation phase here, and then transmutation, and then realization. During this block of training right here, you try to bring up strength characteristics and strength endurance. So you can use the major exercises like squat, bench, deadlift, and variations of them for max effort and repetition effort, which is just dropping out as many times as you can, with general conditioning thrown in, stuff like crowded walks, go overruns, stuff like that, push-ups, runs. All right, so this is kind of building up just the general foundation of stuff you're going to need to then transfer over into your skill-specific stuff. And so then let's say, give me 4 events.
Log press, yoke walk, Atlas stones, and car deadlift.
So you do something like, what's an exercise that's kind of like log but it's not? Push press or fat grip push press?
Barbell press.
Fat bar press. Fat bar press. We'll have a better correlation in a second, dumbbell press. Which is kind of something like yoke walks, farmer's walks.
Right.
Atlas stones, that might be something like Roosevelt stone.
Right.
And car deadlift. You could do something like, I think what would be kind of like a car deadlift.
It's hard.
How about tires? So these would then become the main lifts that you train for, okay? Or major staples within your training program. Kind of build up max strength and depending on whether it's for reps or max or what, so on and so forth. So those would be kind of your major lifts now, and then you would use accessory stuff, and you would throw this stuff in here. It does not be your main fitness. You can throw it in like once every 2 to 3 weeks. Okay? And then you get better at this. Again, all this strength is now carrying over into something a little bit more dynamic correspondence to these exact goals. Although honestly, deadlift is probably a better correspondence to car deadlift than farm tires. So you might flip-flop tires to deadlift and deadlift to this.
Okay.
Okay? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Because that's going to be a better dynamic correspondence. Sure. Or carryover, if you want to say. And then in your realization phase, then you just throw in log, yoke, atlas stones, bar deadlift, with a little bit of general conditioning. Okay? And so, as if all you're doing is train these from here, you would not continue to stimulate the system optimally. Your max would kind of max out. Right. But we bring up the bottom of that pyramid so that you can start bringing up the middle part of that pyramid, and then your competition would be here, and so on and so forth. Okay. That would be how you would kind of periodize it for strongman. And like when you're done with the competition, if you have another competition that's say 16 weeks or 4 months, you're not going to go directly back into this, right?
Right.
No, you can come back and kind of come back in here and fire yourself like that. The reason Louis, I don't know if this, but the reason Louis liked to do his conjugate method, where they like do something mimics the bench squat and deadlift all the time, so they could compete within like 2 weeks. They could compete. They were ready to rock and roll instantly. So normal people that are block periodizing or doing a linear periodization, what they were doing back in the day, would have to basically like, all right, we got to meet. All right, we need 12 weeks to get ready for it. And they'd be like, we need 3 weeks, 4 weeks. And they'd be ready for it instantly because they were constantly training max effort, deadlifts, and speed, and squats, and bench, and all that kind of stuff. All right. So.
This kind of goes, I guess, kind of something like this. Like, say on paper you set up your macro cycle because that's what looks good. You know what you want to achieve, so you like set up your like whole macro cycle, and then you hit the gym, and then like in one of your mesocycles or whatever, you're like, well, I don't feel that at all. Like, at what point in time frame or whatever would you say maybe it's because you don't feel it because maybe I'm not working it right, or it's not set up in my cycle, you know, at the right placement, or you should just listen to your body and scratch it and pick something else that would go with that.
I basically asked, like, at what point in time, if you're like, I'm not getting shit out of this, so I change it. Well, to say at that point in time, once you figure out you're not getting anything out of it, switch it. But, you know, again, don't judge off a singular workout. I do it all the time. It's like, I'll throw in a bunch of stuff and go, this is too much, scratch this, and drop it out. Or like in my athletes, I'll be like, we're gonna get that extra 15 minutes, and I'll just write stuff into the workout. I mean, they have a program sitting here, but I'm like, we had extra time, you guys feeling good? Okay, you're not burning out, right, let's do some extra work. And so, you know, the program can always be dynamic, okay? It's just kind of like a kind of ground base of saying like, if you go, my main goal for this entire macro cycle is I want to put on 20 pounds, okay? To do that, I need to get strong as shit, and I need to stimulate my muscles to a degree necessary to put on weight, okay? Well, you know, if you're choosing exercises and you're like, man, this is really, I'm getting really strong at this, but I just really don't feel this at all in my hamstrings, pick a different hamstring exercise. Find one that you can stimulate your hamstrings. And if you're just like, I'm not getting any better at bench press, go to incline press. I mean, chances are, like, you're probably gonna get pretty good at it for a long enough time. So, you know, 3 to 4 weeks of it, and if you're not getting better after that, you can throw in another exercise. I mean, you gotta kind of block stuff out 3, 4, sometimes 5 weeks anyways. You know, so don't scratch the whole program. If you're like, now we really don't like this exercise, I'm gonna drop it and write a whole new macro cycle. That's what everybody does. Is they're like, oh, 5-3-1 is awesome, but this sounds cool, and I'm not really getting better at this, so I'm gonna switch to something else. It's just like stick with the game plan. You can as long as your foundation is the same, you know, 5-3-1 will work great if you just stop using bench and go to incline, which is the exact same thing for incline, and you can come back to bench. Or you stop using squats, use front squats, you know, however you're going to work it. Don't scratch the whole program. Give it a few weeks, and if the exercise isn't what you want it to be, then change it.